Nature must have loved this land very much, for here she left her gifts. Here she seemed to make a special, shining promise to man. But nature alone could not bring its promise to fulfillment. There had to be men, to bring this abundance to useful life. Nature provided the stately forest trees. Vision and ingenuity transformed them into homes for the entire nation. Many looked across the verdant land, admiration for its rich promise. Those with vision saw more. To some, it was a harvest of golden grain, wheat, barley, oats, rye, to feed the nation's hungry. Others could see beneath the lush surface to hidden riches. They dug it out and shipped the iron ore through its greatest port to become girders and needles, motor cars and guns. Others looked across the land, dreamed of an inland empire, and linked it with shining rails to east and west. To this land of sky blue water have come men of many skills, many talents. For here, nature is kind to men of vision and courage and faith. One such man stood here in 1865 and saw a fulfillment of a dream that had carried him 4,000 miles from the heart of Europe. There was the water he sought, exactly seeds, the sky blue water, unsurpassed anywhere in the world. Here were the richest of grains, another very important ingredient, surpassed skill. With the passing of years, this vision has grown into a great institution, grown to greatness through nearly a century of wedding the finest of bountiful nature with the most advanced scientific research and control. Plants, facilities, and methods have changed with the passing years, but some things never change. Let's look about and see how the traditions of yesteryear are preserved and enriched in this, one of the largest and one of the most modern of plants in all the world, devoted to the fine art of brewing. Today, grain arrives by the trainloads, known its prime quality established even more rigorously than when the founder of Hamm's hand-tested every basketful. This particular load of barley is being delivered by a local grower. He and other farmers have been raising and selling their pedigreed barley to Hamm's all their lives. Sons and grandsons carry on a warm tradition of friendship. And throughout this great plant, you find this same continuity of friends generation after generation behind. In that single battery of elevators can be stored more than 1.5 million bushels of barley. All the ancient art of brewing is gathered behind this name. And here, it has been improved and developed by skill and science can create. But science can control and set standards. Science can work for uniformity and for higher standards. And in this amazing land of sky blue waters, science can only marvel at the wonderful quality and the unfailing supply of the finest raw materials unexcelled anywhere. You would expect these people at Hamm's to take extra pains in their delicate art, and they do. For instance, they are one of the exclusively few to make their own malt. Why? Because malt is the heart of the beer, and controlled malting is the only way to be sure that smooth, refreshing flavor that everyone likes. No other single ingredient has so much to do with the character of the finished beverage. Most people have never seen a moment and looked inside a modern malt house. The grain moves from the elevators on endless rubber belts to the steeping tanks. Here, the grain from Hamm's own artesian wells, wonderfully refreshing, ideal for malting purposes. After aerating and steeping, the grain goes to the germinating compartment, where humidified, conditioned air is forced down through the bottom of these tanks. Rotating augers, slowly, gently, keep bringing the barley up from the bottom, giving each kernel equal chance to sprout. But There is no substitute for scientific care. Samples are taken at every step, for eternal vigilance is the price of premium quality. After steeping, the moist barley looks like this. Then, under perfect conditions, each kernel sprouts. Complex chemical, physical, and biological reactions are taking place. At exactly the right time, the malt is conveyed to kilns, where the growth processes are checked by heat. This is a delicate process. The temperature is carefully controlled and the moisture content lowered. Finally, the malt goes not to the brew house, but to the elevators to rest for several months. For mellowing time is essential to malt as well as beer. Carefully cleaned once more, it moves through a large pneumatic tube all the way to the brew house. Here we are at the brew house, the heart of the brewing process. A far cry from Hamm's small original brew house of 1865. After the malt has been cleaned and crushed, all materials are carefully weighed and checked. Meantime, the various brewing ingredients are skillfully blended according to the brewing skill which has been faithfully kept since 1865. Cooking is done in big pressure cookers like this, where again, science steps in to rigidly control the temperature throughout the entire process. Then, all of this is added to the rest of the malt mash and mixed with that wonderfully pure, cool artesian water, which is perfect for the delicate brewing process. In these big lauter tubs, the mash is stirred and sprayed with hot water, dissolving the goodness of the grain from the kernels. Here, the liquid is filtered through the mash to crystal clarity. Then it will move on through the brew kettle, and the remaining mash will be processed and returned to farmers in the form of stock feed, actually richer in food elements important to animal stock than grain fresh from the harvest. This is a big business in itself, but let's follow the brew to the kettles. The very size of these kettles startles most visitors. One of those shining copper kettles is big enough to brew a glass of beer for every adult in a city the size of Fort Worth, Texas. Like a good cook, the brewer checks a sample of the liquid being cooked inside. During the process, the liquid is concentrated. And here's another important ingredient: Hamm's special blend of hops. Hops to beer are like seasoning to food. It's the hops that give the delightful tang, the exquisite bouquet to the finished beer. But you must have exactly the right blend and the right amount. And then, at exactly the right time, the hops are strained out, the liquid cooled. Cooling itself is a precise and scientific operation in this brewery. The liquid will be aerated with purified air. As an added safeguard, the air in this entire room is controlled and conditioned. At this point in the operation, the liquid goes to the fermentation building, and yeast is added. Hamm's yeast traces back generation after generation, more than half a century, to a single special strain, propagated from one original perfect cell. Electrostatic filters and bacteria-killing lamps guard the precious yeast against anything which might impair the strain. It lives in a glass house and is called the world's most pampered yeast. Into these open tanks comes the liquid and the yeast. During the fermenting process, time and temperatures are controlled. Then the liquid goes into closed tanks to complete the fermenting cycle. The beer is then ready for long, leisurely aging. In this separate stockhouse, the beer will age quietly until it reaches perfection, as prescribed in Hamm's quality control procedure. Behind these glistening walls are glass-lined tanks. Nothing is allowed to disturb this slow process through which Hamm's fine ferment gains that extra refreshing smoothness and clean-cut taste. Here is where the smoothness and extra quality are aged in. Finally, the flowing beer is filtered and becomes brilliantly clear. A combination of old world skills and modern science has made it as pure as any beverage can possibly be. Then it goes through the government cellars. Nature has done her part, but the skill of man must carry on unrelaxed. Here's how beer is taxed. Every gallon of beer is measured and recorded on those meters. In the short space of time you've been watching this picture, the brewing industry will pay a tax of over $28,000. That's more than $30 a second. From the government cellars, the beer flows on to be packaged in various ways. Sterile and absolutely clean kegs of stainless steel or aluminum are filled on these racking machines. In the bottling plant, you can really see the parade of popularity. The entire process of filling and sealing is done by automatic machines. Indeed, the visitor needs a quick eye to catch the various operations as they are performed. By the hundreds and thousands, the cans move through the pasteurizer, ensuring quality and freshness. After all the controls and inspections at every step, they take regular samples off the line. No product from Hamm's Brewery in this land of sky blue waters is allowed to leave until samples have been double-checked at the central laboratory. Standards are guarded jealously, and this careful vigilance is one of the reasons millions of consumers have changed to this refreshing beer. While we're here in the laboratory, there's one other kind of testing going on. These men and women have been selected because they are endowed by nature with a particularly critical sense of taste. They provide the human double check to ensure that skill and science are maintaining the delicate, clean-cut flavor that is so distinctively Hamm's. Now, modern distribution, the wedding of an ancient art and modern science. All of this has been joined together with devoted skill, generation after generation. Now they move out for food stores, taverns, package stores, hotels, and restaurants. Of course, there's pride in this giant ultra-modern plant, but Hamm's is even prouder of their people and their traditions. The people who through all these years have built the rich heritage back of Hamm's beer. The beer refreshing from the land of the sky blue water.